Chat history. You said. YouTube channel name Productive Dude. Video title, N8N Agent. Build a self-learning agent. N8N tutorial. Can you build me this agent? Below is an example of how you might start building a self-learning AI agent using N8N. Keep in mind that N8N is a workflow automation tool. It can call APIs, process data, and store results. But self-learning, in the sense of continually retraining a model, usually involves an external training pipeline. In our example, we'll set up a basic workflow that receives an input, a prompt or query, via a webhook, calls an API, like OpenAI's GPT, to process the prompt, returns the response to the user, optionally, stores the query response pair for later review or training. Below you'll find a step-by-step guide with a sample workflow. You can customize or expand on this to include a feedback loop for self-learning, for example, by capturing user corrections and storing them in a database, which you could then use to retrain your model periodically. Step 1. Set up your N8N environment. Installation. If you haven't already, install N8N locally or use N8N Cloud. API keys. Sign up for the AI service you plan to use, e.g., OpenAI, and obtain your API key. Step 2. Create the basic workflow. You can create a workflow in the N8N editor that looks like this. Webhook node. This node will trigger your workflow when you send an HTTP request, for example, when a user submits a query. HTTP request node, to call the API. This node sends the prompt to the AI service. Respond to webhook node. This node sends the API's response back to the caller. Below is an example N8N workflow in JSON format. You can import it into N8N. JSON, name, agent workflow, nodes, parameters, path, agent, HTTP method, post, name, webhook, type, N8N nodes base. Webhook, type version, 1. Replace your _OpenAI _API _ key with your actual API key. The example uses OpenAI's Text DaVinci 003 engine. You can choose another engine or even another API if desired. The workflow expects a JSON payload with a key named query. For example, JSON query, what is the weather today? Step 3. Optional, adding a feedback loop for self-learning. A truly self-learning agent would collect user feedback and use it to improve future responses. While N8N itself won't retrain your model, it can help you build the feedback loop. For example, you could add a node to capture user feedback. After the response is sent, prompt the user to rate or correct the response. Store the feedback. Use a database node, like MySQL, Postgres, or even Google Sheets, to save the original query, AI response, and user feedback. Periodic retraining. Set up a separate process, perhaps in Python, that reads this stored data and retrains your AI model or fine-tunes it using the new data. Here's a conceptual addition to the workflow. Feedback webhook node, another webhook to capture feedback. Database node, to store the feedback. Trigger node, to initiate a retraining process at set intervals. This might be a separate system entirely. Final thoughts. While the above example gives you a starting point for an AI agent in N8N, building a robust self-learning system involves iterative improvement, regularly reviewing feedback and updating your training data. Integration with ML pipelines, using frameworks like TensorFlow, PyTorch, or even additional OpenAI endpoints, to retrain or fine-tune your model. Automation. N8N can automate much of the workflow, but the learning part will likely require a custom process or additional software. If you have any more questions or need further details, like adding specific feedback nodes or integrating a database, feel free to ask.